Hey, welcome to episode 21 of the Mile 62 podcast. I'm your host, Richard Elkins, coming to you from Austin, Texas. We cover everything ultra running in the southern United States with a special focus on Texas. Hey, today this episode is about heat management and mental strength for 100K plus events. I think the timing is good because ultras look like they're going to start happening again in August, September, when it's the hottest months of the year. And when you have a hot race, mental strength is very important as well. A lot of people say that mental strength is 60% of the event, 60% of the effort, I should say. I don't think so. I think it's maybe 30-40%, but it's very important. You need to know your limits. And so let's get into it. Mental strength. This is very important. You need to know your limits, and it's nothing wrong with going after a big goal and jumping. Some people jump from 10K to 100K or 50K. There's nothing wrong with that, but you need to know what you're in for. This focus of this talk today is 100K plus, so 62 miles and 100-mile events. One thing I will say is I think I've done about 10 100Ks, and 2 of them were 100-mile events that I DNF'd. And I have finished one 100-mile event. But 100K, I should say 100-mile event is 2 times as difficult as a 100K event, in my opinion. So you need really good mental strength, you need to have good conditioning, and also you need to be able to manage your heat in the environment or the cold during the winter time. But today we're talking about heat management and mental strength. So mental strength, one of the big things I do is that really works well for me is I break up the event in small chunks. And I usually do this by aid station. So whether it's a 100K or 100-mile event, I'm only focused on the next aid station. So when I'm running that segment, and if it's a multi-loop course, I know what to expect even more so. But I'm focused on the next aid station, thinking the whole time, whether or not it's 5 miles or 10 miles, what do I need in that next aid station? Do I really need to focus on my hydration more than I have in the previous aid stations, or do I need to try to get some gels, or maybe a combination of real food and gels? But that is really one of the key things, and I've learned that from people a lot more experienced than me, is you got to focus in small chunks. And that's actually a tool that the people that do the 200-mile events do, because it can be really overwhelming if you think of the whole event. And in some races, which are loop events, I'll give you an example, Javelin 100, you're going to do 5 20-mile loops. So it really starts messing with your head. And one of the aid stations is going to be near your car. And a lot of ultras are set up that way. And I learned from one famous coach that I heard in another podcast that try not to stop at the aid station that's near your car. And if you do, get something and take off. And I think it was Jeff Browning that said that. Jeff Browning said that get stuff from the aid station near your car and then eat it on the trail, and do not spend any time there, because otherwise you'll be thinking about quitting. So I think that's a really good gold nugget. Actually, I do that in every aid station. I typically don't stop unless I'm drinking something that's special, like pickle juice or something that I usually can't carry that has a cup or a paper cup that they provide. I usually don't stay in the aid station. I fill up, grab the food that I need, maybe some extra gels I'll stuff in my pocket, and I'll take off. I will not spend any time in that aid station. And in all the years of me running ultras, I don't think I've ever sat down in an aid station except for once, which is a Habanero event. Habanero is the hottest ultra in Texas, and that's the one's coming up. I've done that 3 times, and the only time I've ever had to sit down in an ultra at an aid station was during one of those. If you got to do it, you got to do it. But the best thing to do is get moving, because the people, you want to, I'm going to talk about it in a minute, but banking time, as people say, is very important. So if you can grab your stuff and eat it while you're on the trail, that's great. You spend 15 minutes there, that starts to add up over an event that could last a day. And that could mean the difference between you meeting a cutoff time or not. So get your stuff and go. So break up your stuff in segments. Also, very important is, don't worry about what's at the aid stations. You're probably saying, what do you mean? I think some people go really carried away and they're studying the aid station foods before the event and worried about, oh my gosh, this is going to have goo products and I always eat hammer, etc., etc. Don't look into it that much. You need to be prepared to eat anything that they may provide. Now, if some food is really strange, like sometimes I'll have soups or some food that I just don't eat at all, I won't eat it. But if they have pizza or soups and stuff that I usually don't even eat when I'm running, I'll eat it. You got to eat, and you really want to aim for 200, 250 calories per hour. And that really becomes more important later in the event. However, if you get above 400 calories an hour, you may have stomach problems and the stuff might try to come out. So you really have to pace your eating, but don't be obsessed about what's at the aid station. Why am I talking about that right now? Because that's a mental strength thing. If you're worried about, oh no, they don't have noodles at the aid station for me, and they just have mashed potatoes. Well, eat the mashed potatoes. That's really important. And I see this really with people that have crews. Nothing against crews, and people listening to my podcast know that I don't use pacers or crews, and I'm not against doing that. But people that have crews tend to really have a gourmet set up for themselves and really focus too much on what they're eating, and I think that can backfire on you. If your crew is not there at an aid station, when you get there, you might get there faster than they get there, and that happens a lot to runners. You need to be able to eat whatever's at the aid station, and that's very important. Another thing I do, some people use mantras and other things to keep themselves going. I do the same thing. I have phrases that I use, and one that I always tell myself, and you got to come up with one that works for you. But I tell myself, you didn't come out here to walk. And what that means is, later in a race, sometimes I just find myself, why am I hiking? Why am I power hiking? We call it an ultra. I can still run. Sometimes I slow down for no reason, and I'll tell myself that. Now, later in the race, there might be some time I need to power hike, or a mixture of running and power hiking. But you got to keep yourself going. Don't let your mind mess with you. And your mind is going to mess with you. And these are the really long events. The body tries to shut you down. And because it's your brain is telling you, what are you doing? You need to quit. But you need to be strong in that area. So another strategy you can do is banking time. I mentioned that earlier. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, there are people out there that figure out an average time they need to run every mile to finish. And I think that works for some people, but if you get in trouble, let's say you have a hydration problem, your stomach has problems, or God forbid you run into a rattlesnake. I've had that happen before, where I ran into a rattlesnake and there was no way of passing through the trail. I had to wait. Probably, it seemed like 20 minutes. It's probably 5 or 10 minutes, 5 minutes probably. But wait for the thing to pass. So that's very important. You need to bank time. What I typically do is I usually run 10.5 to 11-minute miles when I run. I'm not a fast runner, but I run long. Typically in a ultra 100K or longer, I'll run 30 seconds slower, and I'll try to bank time. So when I get in the second half of the race, I want to be a few hours ahead of what I need to meet the cutoff time. And most cutoff times in a 100K can be anywhere from 16 to 21 hours, and in a 100-mile event, usually they're around 30 hours. Sounds like a lot of time, but you can run into issues with, and if you're a middle to back of the pack runner, you could easily use the 30 hours. So bank time, that's a very important concept. And spending a few minutes in an aid station rather than 10 or 15 really adds up, because a lot of these events will have 3 or 4 aid stations in a loop, or if it's a point-to-point, which really are my favorite types of races, usually aid stations every 5K or something like that. So it can really add up. So take that into mind. Like I said, know your limits. I'll give you an example. One time I was in a night race. In Texas, during the summer, we have night trail races, 30K, 60K. The whole race is at night. And that's also the time where, we have a lot of wildlife. We have rattlesnakes. We have all kinds of things, scorpions, whatever. I ran into a person one time that was just freaking out at night. And I ran with them for a while. And then when I tried to move ahead, they panicked and wanted me to stay with them. But they were so much slower than me. And I did stay with them for a while until we got to an aid station. But I thought that was kind of uncool. I mean, I'm all for supporting my friends, friends and colleagues out there running. But, if you're scared of running at night, you should partner up with somebody before the race. So know your limits. If you're not sure about running at night, practice it with some friends on some training runs, because it is very different. Running at night can be scary, and I run with 2 lights. I run with I'm sponsored by Ultra Aspire. I wear their belt light, waist light, and then I also wear one on my head, because if I'm going through steep terrain or rocky terrain, I'll put them both on. I'm like a freight train going down the trail. So you got to do what makes you feel comfortable. Because I don't see very well at night. And if you're scared of running at night, or scared of running in the high heat or cold, you need to practice that. So I talked about eating. One thing about eating and drinking, when I said take the stuff with you on the trail, if you're in a flat race, it doesn't really, it's not a really good, it's not a strategy that you can use. But in a lot of races, there's a lot of hills and inclines and stuff like that. That's really the best time to eat and drink, because unless you're a pro or Jim Walmsley or something, you're going to be power hiking hills. So those are really good times to drink and eat. And also it calms you down. Also, I say smile, be nice, even if others don't talk to you back. Sometimes in a race, I always try to say hi to everybody. Sometimes people ignore you, or they have music on and they don't hear you or whatever. It doesn't matter. You still I just try to do what I feel makes me happy and comfortable, and other people do that too. And even some of the pros. I mean, one guy I really look up to, Patrick Reagan. He runs for Hoka, and all the races I've seen, he always smiling and say, "Good job, keep going." The guy's running 6.5-minute miles, and he's leading the race, and he says that to everyone he passes, and it's really very cool. I try to do the same. I always try to encourage people, keep going. Where are you from? Have fun out there. That's the whole thing about trail racing compared to road racing. A lot of us were in road racing. I was in road racing for, 10, 15, 20 years. No, less than that, probably 15 years. Nobody talked to each other. And that's what I like about the trail running community. People are friendly, and, So talk it up when you see people out on the trail. Hey, good job. Do you need anything? I mean, do you need a salt pill? If somebody looks like they're in bad shape, see if you can help them out. So I think that's real important. Heat training. Let's talk about heat training. People say, yeah, I'm doing heat training. I'm wearing a coat, or I'm going to a sauna, or running in the afternoon. I think that's not needed. You're like, what are you talking about? Well, I've lived in Texas my whole life, and I run probably above 90 degrees all the time. Today I ran, it was 99. It's no different for me. The key is to be prepared. I don't care how long or how many years you run in extreme heat. If you're not prepared, it's going to take you down that day. And I think the same goes for the cold. But so you don't have to be crazy about the heat training, because if you're not prepared on race day with some of the things I'm going to tell you in a second, it's going to take you down anyways. No, I don't care if you're from Texas or you're from Canada and you came down and you're racing. I don't buy that. I don't think it really affects you any different. You just got to be prepared. Sometimes I'm running in my neighborhood and it's extremely hot, like I mentioned, and I see people without a water bottle. Sometimes I think, well, maybe they're not running very far. I mean, I'm running a 10K every day, basically. And then sometimes I see people that run pretty far and they're still not carrying a water bottle. That's really dangerous. And it really affects your running as well, because you need to stay hydrated, because your blood's going to get real thick if you don't, and you're basically going to bonk. As we say, bonking is when you just basically fall apart. So let's talk about some of the strategies. Some of the strategies that I've used is arm sleeves. And arm sleeves are basically, they're sleeves that you pull up on your arm and they go all the way up to your shoulder, and you stuff them with ice. They work really well. However, I don't know where you would buy them. I've never seen them sold, but the race directors in Texas always give them out as, with T-shirts and stuff. It's just part of the kit, and I've got several. I use them even in the wintertime to keep warm. But I cannot say enough for arm sleeves. When I first did it, I was thinking, man, this is going to be painful stuffing ice in my arm. But you can't feel it. I mean, you're so hot that you can't feel it. And by the time you get to the next aid station, it's going to be melted. And the reason it works so well is because there's arteries. There's a lot of blood running through your arms. And you have the ability to put ice directly on it. And it really, really works well. It really cools you down, and that's probably the best thing. That's one of the best hacks that I can tell you. Ladies, they put ice in their sports bras. That also works well. And some people put ice in hats. My brother does that when he runs ultras. I don't do that because I don't like the water all over me. And some people like to wear cotton shirts and let it be wet and all that. I don't do that. I just do arm sleeves. And another thing I think is an advantage, I don't have any scientific proof for this, but when I run during the days, I always put on double coat of spray sun protection. And when I'm racing in these events, I do not put sun protection under the arm sleeves. They protect me. And I think I'm able to sweat better. I really think the sun protection clogs up your pores. And so you want to get away from sun protection or suntan lotion, I guess you'd say, if you can. If you have the protective clothes, which are SPF 50 or whatever, you might be able to get it. You still need to really be very careful, especially in these hot events. But I think that's one advantage of arm sleeves too. And during the winter, I wear them because when I race in the desert like Javelina, it's hot during the day. I don't take them off at night. It keeps me warm at night. So I just keep them on the whole race, which is really cool because you don't take your watch off and, bands and all kinds of things. They're really, I can't say enough about them. The only bad news is I don't know where you buy them. The race directors in Texas, they give them away, and you can buy them from them, but I've never seen them in REI or any other place. Another thing about heat is you need to be lubed up very well. And I can't say enough about this. I've learned the hard way about this, and I've run so many extremely hot races. I mean, Habanero, the whole race is above 100. So I have a lot of experience racing in the desert and stuff like that. When I run every day here in Texas, I just use Vaseline because I'm typically not running more than a 10K or maybe 15K. Hey, there's some exceptions. But when I'm racing, that's very different. I use Squirrel's Nut Butter, which I'm sponsored by, and also Trail Toes. Trail Toes works real well, and it's a more of a liquid. It's designed to put on your feet, but I learned that from my brother. He puts it all over everywhere, and that works real well. There's also that stick that's kind of like a deodorant kind of case the triathletes use. I buy that one too because it's only about 2 inches long, and you can put it in your vest. And you're going to need to, in a 100K and a 100-mile event, you're going to need to lube up several times. I really recommend it maybe every 3 or 4 hours, because there's nothing nothing more painful than getting chafed real bad. And the worst areas to get chafed is in the legs, also under the arms. Your pack can cause chafing too. Always lube up under your arms, of course your nipples. Probably not a problem for the ladies because they have a sports ball, but when your shirt gets wet, it's like sandpaper. So if you haven't run long events, you're going to learn that the hard way. So you want to lube up there, and then the worst place is butt crack. It sounds funny, but that, even if you lube it every 3 or 4 hours, you're still going to have some chafing in there. And that's one that is incredibly painful the next few days after the race if you don't take care of that. And it could take you out of the race. And habanero, every year, there are people get extreme chafing and basically kicked out of the race. That brings me to another point. I'm getting older. I'm 53, but I've been doing better and better in races. I'm actually placing better than I did in my 40s and 30s, and the reason is I'm just getting smarter. I'm not getting faster. I'm actually getting slower. I just know how to protect from chafing. I know how to hydrate. I know how to eat. It's like I think that's the neat thing about ultras, is kind of like a project plan. You're a project manager. If there's so many variables that can take you out, and if you plan all those well, you can beat people that are much faster than you. And this is one area that takes out so many people. I mean, I remember in Habanero last year, my brother told me, you heard one of the medics was laughing that some guy asked the medic to tape his balls. That was kind of funny. Of course, she laughed and said, we don't do that kind of thing, but he chafed the crap out of himself. Can you imagine? There's no way you can run if that happens. So you need to be very well lubed up, and you need to carry some on you. So it doesn't matter what brand you carry, but carry some. Vaseline doesn't work very well in really long events. It just evaporates and falls off. But daily running, I think it works really well. But the long events, use Squirrel's Nut Butter or Trail Toes, or that triathlete stick. I can't believe I can't remember the name right now. So chafing, be very prepared. That's a very important thing, and it'll make it more not only will it keep you in the race, but it'll make the few days after the race a lot more pleasant. Because if you rip off a bunch of skin on your body, you're going to feel like crap the next few days after the race. Pickle juice. Pickle juice to prevent cramping. Tastes like crap, but I highly suggest drink a cup of it when it's provided. I don't know how it works, and I've asked many people, but it was found by, the way I heard, some high school coaches that were using it, and anyway, it's a big product now. I've talked to people that's like been cramping, and I said, well, did you drink some pickle juice? And they're saying, well, I don't like the taste of it. So what? When you're out in a race, you need to eat and drink what your body needs. This is not a buffet. I mean, you only eat what you like. Because if you go out there and you only eat M&Ms and don't eat some of the things your body needs, it's going to be a short race for you. So I highly suggest use pickle juice, especially if you get cramps in your thighs and stuff. I don't, but I sometimes get lower back issues, and it will also help with that. At least that's what I tell myself. But it's highly recommended by a lot of people. Another thing is I never wear cotton. I always wear polyester. Now, a lot of people would debate this with me, and like I said, a lot of people say you wear a cotton shirt and let it get wet. I get a lot hotter with cotton, and even in my job and my daily activities, I never wear cotton. I always wear polyester, and some of the sports fabric that used in running tops and stuff, I much prefer that. I never wear cotton. I see some people out there, especially ladies, wearing tights and stuff. If it's not cold, don't be wearing tights. Now, if you want to wear shorts that are down to your knees or something to protect from chafing, I think that's a very good idea. Because one thing I use is Exoskin shorts. I'm not sponsored by Exoskin, but they don't ride up on your legs, and they have like a copper thread in it. It comes from like the printed circuit board industry. Does really well, and I highly recommend Exoskin shorts. But if you have some sort of I've also tried the triathlete swim shorts. Those don't work, at least not for me. They may work for triathletes and up to the marathon distance, but they do not work for really long events. You'll get chafed really bad. But wear the shorts that work for you. But I cannot wear like Salomon or normal Nike type of running shorts in a long event. They will ride up on me and I'll get chafed on my inner legs, inner thighs. So highly recommend getting some expensive shorts. Exoskin's not the only brand out there, but I think they're very good. They are $75 to $80 expensive, but a lot of the podcasts like TRN and others, they have discount codes on their website so you can get them cheaper. Highly recommend those. I also highly recommend Exoskin socks. I've never tried them, but I've heard they're very good. Same material. I use Injinji socks, which are a polyester blend toe socks, and I never have problems with chafing or blistering on my feet. I only have blistering sometimes in my ruck racing, as that's when I'm carrying a weight on my back. But in ultras, I very seldom have blisters anymore after using toe socks. So Injinji, Exoskin, very good brands. For the heat, you're going to lose salt, and salt tablet intake is very important. They have them at races, and usually they put like 2 in a cup, and they pull it out of whatever brand that they're sponsored by, which is fine. But I think with the coronavirus, I think they're not going to be doing that anymore. They may put them in small baggies or something like that. But I highly suggest take your own salt tablets with you and keep them in your vest. I use the salt stick tabs. You can buy them. They're not cheap. It's about $5 or $6 for a small package of them. And I think there's 5 in there. Maybe it's more. 5. Maybe there's 10 in there. I can't remember now. But they have like it's salt, magnesium, zinc. It's a really good mixture. Those work really well for me, and it's a reclosable pack, and you can put it in your vest in one small pocket. And I only eat one at a time. Don't do more than that; it'll upset your stomach. There are other brands out there. I would say don't use Hammer brand. A lot of people use Hammer products. I do like some of their products, like their Perpetuum and their gels, and their recovery powder is real good. But their Hammer brand electrolytes, salt tablets, they suck. I used them for like a year, and I always probably had problems with my salt. And finally, someone else told me that he didn't think they worked very well either. Sure enough, I switched over because I was trying to do that thing where I'm using all Hammer products, as ease, buy everything from the same company. Turns out that Hammer brand doesn't work very well. As soon as I switched to salt stick tablets, I found a very big improvement. So my suggestion is don't use Hammer brand, but use the brand that you want to use. There are several brands out there, but I highly recommend salt stick tablets. I'm not sponsored by them. I just had good luck with them, and I've used them for about a year. They come in small packages that are great for race day, or you can buy them in bottles and split them up. I used to do that with Hammer. I put them in vials and put them in my vest. But I found that during the race, when you're sweating a lot and stuff, it gets dirty and they get wet and all that. I found that these little pouches work the best, and they're pre-packaged that way, so it works really well. But do what's best for you, but you definitely want to take some salt in. You're going to take some salt in from the sports drinks. But be careful. One thing I do in regards to the sports drinks is when I race, I'm using Ultra Aspire Zygos. Doesn't matter what kind of pack you're wearing, but I have a bladder. I usually only fill it with water, and I do that for a couple reasons. Well, I should say ice. I put ice in there and it melts into water, but I do that because I don't want the valve to get all sticky and sugar and stuff in there, because valves you have to replace a lot. And also I do it because I don't want to drink too much sports drink, because I'll get a sugar high and then come down on it. So what I found works best for me is I fill up my bladder with water and ice, and then I always carry one small bottle in my hand, and I use that for sports drink, or if I want to get some coffee or something like that. One quick thing about the salt tablets: make sure you don't get the caffeinated ones. They're a different color pouch. I'm going to talk about caffeine in a minute, but you don't want to take caffeine during the day. I usually take it in the morning, but you don't want to be taking it all during the day. Otherwise, it becomes not too effective at night, and it'll make you sick to your stomach. But when I'm talking about sports drinks, I typically put it in one bottle, and I'll carry it. That way I can differentiate. So my bottle's always got some sports drink. Don't worry about it if it's Hammer or Tailwind or what brand it is. I think people think too much about those. They all work similar, and they're all very good. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in business. But what you need to make sure of is don't grab the caffeinated one. And what I found is, at least I think the way it works is, they get more caffeinated product because they don't sell that very much. So these drink companies are like Tailwind and Hammer, and there are other brands too, even Gatorade. They donate a lot of drink mix to these race directors, and a lot of times it's a lot of caffeine. So make sure that you don't drink too much caffeine during the day. And at least for me, I'll drink caffeinated Tailwind or Hammer drink, during the night if that's all they have. But I prefer to drink coffee, and the reason is that because I'm a coffee addict. I drink coffee all the time, and I really think there are different kinds of caffeine. And some people drink Red Bulls, and that kind of caffeinated high, sugar high is good for them. But for me, it might feel okay for a little bit, but then you come down real strong on it. So I generally will, some of the race directors always have coffee, and if they're not making coffee, I will pour some of their coffee into my bladder and mix it with my water, or put some in my bottle with ice, and it'll just kind of be like cold coffee. And I've had some races where they didn't have any coffee and it was terrible. So I learned my lesson. I always carry some pouches of coffee in my vest. So if they don't have coffee, I can make my own coffee. I've even done things crazy like mixed coffee in with my Tailwind, or mixed coffee in with whatever sports drink they've had in my bottle. When you're racing, you can't be so finicky about taste and all that. You got to do what you got to do. And but anyways, if you typically like a certain kind of caffeine, try to go that way, and during the race it'll really help you out. If you're just a coffee drinker and then you never drink Red Bull, and you hit a couple Red Bulls during the race, there's a good chance you're going to be in the porta potty. So I think that's real important. What about heat training? Anything else? No, I think I mainly covered it. But if you get anything out of this podcast today, golden nugget wise, is wear arm sleeves with ice. It really makes a huge difference, and I learned that from some others. And you need to use ice. If you don't, you're going to be in a really tough situation if you're running in races above 95 degrees. Let's talk about my favorite brand of trail shoes, Ultra. Had a little bit of an issue this week. As you know, I had a whole episode on Ultra shoe reviews many months ago. There's more details in that podcast. Please go back and listen to that one. But today I want to talk about the Ultra Olympus, because I wear Ultra Olympus for everything these days. I still have some temp versions and some other versions of Ultra, and I got a couple pairs of Lone Peaks too, but I don't wear them that much. I really love the Ultra Olympus. It's their biggest shoe, and it's really designed for the 100-mile and longer distances, and it's a little bit heavier shoe. Takes a little bit getting used to, but for me, I have a somewhat wide foot. At least when wearing Hoka shoes, I think I have a wide foot. Only a few types of Hokas will work for me, but I really like the fit of the Ultra Olympus and the cushion, and I wore version 3s, and I have several pairs of version 3.5s, and however, they're worn out now, because what I do is after I run on the road, I run in trail races, big trail races, and get miles on them, I'll retire them to the road, so they become my road shoes. So I have two 3.5s I've been running on the roads. Well, the soles are getting pretty worn down, and probably have 400 or 500 miles on these shoes already. So I was going to buy some more Olympus, and there's no version 3.5, and the version 4 is coming out soon. Crazy. What a procurement screw up on the part of Ultra, or I guess Deckers, their headquarters company. I've been in purchasing my whole life. That's my job. And you run out of the old model and don't have the new model. Well, anyways, I literally can't buy any Olympus right now. Everyone doesn't have stock, and REI is pre-selling the Olympus 4. Well, the good news is the Olympus 4 looks awesome. It looks like the 3.5, but it looks like they put on a new Vibram thin layer on the bottom of the sole, similar to what the Hoka Mafate EVO shoe has. I have a pair of those that I use for running, and I ruck in those. If you don't know what that shoe is, that's the shoe that Jim Walmsley won the first Western States 100 with. I love that shoe, but a little bit slightly more narrow than I would like. But I've pounded them into my width already. Anyways, it looks like a really killer shoe, but you can't buy it yet. So I buy a lot of my Ultras and Hokas from REI, because I get the 10% kickback at the end of the year, but sometimes I buy them from Ultra direct too, and I contacted them. I said, there's no Olympus on your website. And they said, well, the Ultra Olympus 4 will be up in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from now, we can buy the Ultra Olympus 4. It looks really awesome. But yeah, I really highly recommend it. I'm real high on the Olympus. I think that it's a great shoe. Never felt so strong about a shoe since the Nike Air Stab. I'm dating myself now. That was a long time ago. But I wore that one for many years on the roads before they discontinue it. But I love the Olympus. It's a really big, heavy-duty shoe, and my knees feel good after running these things every day. I also wear the Hoka Cliftons on the road, and I have the Evos, like I mentioned. But Ultra road shoes are not very good. I've got the Escalantes, which I'll use on the track sometimes, and the Duo is a nice shoe. It's very similar to the Olympus, but it's got deep channels in it, and it picks up rocks everywhere, which I don't like. What else? That's enough about shoes. Training update. I've been this week. I should hit about 60 miles. I've been running and rucking every day. So running usually in the morning, and then rucking in the evening. So rucking is I put a 20-pound steel plate on my back in my special Go Ruck backpack. I think it's really helping me. I enjoy it, and I think it's building up my core strength. Because one thing about running the 100K and longer events is the lower back and core strength is so important. I DNF'd in one race, 82 miles, because I lost my lower back. And ever since then, I really work on my core strength. Also, I enjoy rucking. I do ruck races as well, but you really got to focus on your core strength. Sit-ups, planks, rucking, whatever goes for you. But really focus on building up your core strength. I think that's even more important than high mileage, because when you get at 100K plus, your lifetime of miles really is more important. Bike update. My brother has been buying a lot of bikes, and he bought some more classic bikes and gave me one that's from the Centurion Japanese. Really nice bike. Changed my look pedals. Look pedals, and took off my Shimano SPD pedals and put on Look Geo pedals, which are clipless, and bought some new Pearl Azumi shoes, which are a French brand, and been doing I'm going to be doing a lot more road riding on a road bike. During the last year, I've been mainly mountain biking, but my mountain bike has really got some issues now. It's from the 80s, and this road bike is a nice change. Some news. I follow I want to talk about another podcast. If you've ever listened to East Coast Trail and Ultra podcast, it was a great podcast. Funny, very well put together by Ryan Pluckelman. Well, his partner, Sean the Run Bum Blancet, has had some issues, and supposedly DNF some people that he got angry with, and you can read the whole story on Marathon Investigations website. That's the website that investigates marathons and always finds people cheating and all that. But there's a real nice story on there, what happened and all that. And if you listen to Ryan's new podcast, Adventure Jogger, his first episode, he talks about this issue. Basically, it got so bad that he decided to cancel the East Coast Trail and Ultra podcast and deleted all the past episodes. And I read also that Western States has now taken the golden ticket race away from Sean, the Georgia Death Race, GDR. Really unfortunate for Sean. Hopefully he can get things back in order so he can continue his race directing and stuff. But he's really gotten some bad press over DNF some people, and he also just treating some ladies not too well. Wish him the best. But Ryan Pluckelman, one of my favorite podcasters and kind of an idol for me. He speaks so well on his podcast, and the reason is because during the day he's a disc jockey on a radio station, so you can't have better experience than that. But he's doing a really good job on the Adventure Jogger podcast. I recommend you check it out. He's had some really cool issues, like podcasts. I listened to one today about where he interviewed the Chorus founder, the CEO of Chorus, and how they got started and all that. And he had one on the hard lessons. He interviewed one guy that won the Broken Ladder Ultra. Broken Ladder Ultra. What an event. That's where they it was like 75 people. Every day they run a mile longer. So day 1 you run 1 mile, day 2 you run 2 miles, day 3 you run 3 miles. It keeps going till everyone drops out and there's a winner. Crazy enough, it went 5 weeks. These guys were battling it out. They ran 32 miles, then the next day 33 miles, and the next day 34 miles before it finished. What a race. Guy ran probably close to 500 miles in in 4.5 weeks or something like that. It was really an interesting episode. But anyways, that's it for this podcast. If you have any feedback for me, please send me an email at runnerrwe@gmail.com. And I'd like to say a shout out to my sponsors, Ultra Aspire, Squirrel's Nut Butter. And please give me a review on iTunes. It helps me out, helps me get traction for other people to find my podcast. And feel free to follow me on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram. I can be found by Runner RWE. And like I said, if you have any comments about the podcast or questions, or like to be on a future episode, because I am starting to interview more people instead of just talking myself, send me an email to runnerrwe@gmail.com. All right, have a good week, and enjoy your runs out there.